All right, how's it going, everyone? Today we're doing something a little bit different. This is actually the first time that I've had anyone in the studio, and sure enough, it's Mckenna. She is here. Normally we do our live streams on Monday, as you guys know, Mondays with Max and Mckenna, and she came out for the Nerdrotic meetup here in Orange County, California, or down in San Diego, and it was a great time. And she said, hey, why not get out here, meet some of the fans, and also be on the show, because we went and saw Spider-Man, so we're going to give our thoughts on that. So I'm extremely excited to have her in the studio and on the channel. But like I said, we're doing something a little bit different. We're not going to do the live stream tonight. This is just going to be a regular video that we're going to have scheduled and published for everyone to watch. So yeah, Mckenna, I'll hand things off to you. How's the trip been? How did you get here? Well, I guess I'll first say this should have been almost a surprise. I did not know about this. So yeah, how did you make it over to California?
Yeah, so originally this entire trip was supposed to be a surprise. So a friend and I had decided that I was going to fly from where I live all the way across the country to California to try to surprise you and everyone else and literally just show up at the movie theater to watch Spider-Man. And it turned out that logistics were a little harder than I had predicted, so I ended up telling you in advance, and that's how I ended up in this studio.
Yeah, so we figured, instead of doing a surprise meetup where, oh, hey, I see you for the movie, and then you go back to Tennessee or whatever, it was like, hey, let's actually plan something where we can exchange gifts, do a video, see the Spider-Man movie, go see Gary, go meet the fans. Like it ended up turning out really well, or really well off, just because of planning considerations or whatnot. So once again, thank you to Mckenna for being here, and it's pretty awesome. So we didn't want to do a spoiler-free review. We just wanted to get right into it. We're hoping that most people have already seen it. So I wanted to have Mckenna say her thoughts first, because they are surprising. Because normally I'm the cynic about Marvel and Disney and all that stuff. So take it away with your hot take, because I think everyone's really going to enjoy it.
So he already heard this probably 5 minutes after we got out of the movie theater. But I personally, and I'm ready for all the death threats, but I thought the movie was really lame. Thought it was really lame.
That was her exact words. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lame.
I thought there was so much potential and so many places that they could have gone with the movie, and I felt like they blew it.
So for me, I'll just flat out say, yes, it's nostalgia bait, but I had fucking fun. Like, that was what was most important to me. I had a really fun time. The first 30 to 40 minutes is a slog.
It is, yeah.
It's joke after joke after, nudge and like, hey, get this reference and here's this thing. And it just felt so forced, and it felt like Disney Marvel again. But then for me, and I know you feel differently.
I'm about to disagree.
Right.
Ready for this?
We get the Spider-Man that we've wanted to see for the entire since the new Homecoming or whatever those movies were. Are you shaking your head at the camera?
I'm already shaking my head.
We get Toby, we get Andrew Garfield, we get Tom Holland, we get everyone, all the Spider-Mans teaming up at the end, and they're doing superhero shit. It's exactly what I want in a superhero film. It's the team up, it's the crossover, it's good guys versus bad guys, and it's a superhero movie. But it's a little too late, because it's in the third act, and you've been waiting for it. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. But like I said, it is a bit of key jangling and nostalgia bait. Your thoughts on the Spider-Man?
Yeah, so okay, if the entire movie, if they had introduced all three of them out of the gate, and the entire movie had been this iconic trio of everyone that we love, all the Spider-Men, and they had these fantastic quips that are in the movie of references to the past Spider-Man movies, but that had been the entirety of the film, it would have been fantastic. And they would have completely banked on the actors at play. But in my opinion, they waited far too late, and by the time that we finally got around to the good stuff, I was already checked out.
The chemistry between the three Spider-Men it's like watching brothers
Yeah.
interact with each other.
Yeah.
You have the oldest, the middle, and the youngest. They're all like interacting with each other, and they're all giving each other a hard time, but also joking with each other. And they have this chemistry that I've never seen in a Marvel movie for years now, that we haven't seen in a while. And like you said, they were cash grabbing on those actors. So they felt like, hey, we don't really have to put any type of work or script or anything. We can just put these guys on the screen and get our cash grab.
Yeah.
But when you saw them on the screen, that's what we wanted the
Yeah.
whole film. Give us that for an entire film, because it was so well. At least the actors were so well done in these roles, in these in their Spider-Man roles.
They had a natural chemistry.
Yes.
The three Spider-Men, they had this incredible natural chemistry that, like you were saying, it was like watching three brothers. And it was phenomenal because obviously these three actors have no history that I'm aware of doing any kind of film together. So they show up on set and they really do have this history that draws you in, and that's when you forget that you're watching a film. That's when you are actually engaged with the film and you feel like you were there with them and you feel like you're experiencing those incredible scenes with them.
Yeah.
So if it had been the entire movie where we got to see this character arc of how the three brothers, so to speak, interacted, that would have been incredible.
Yes.
And they nailed that at the end because they had these incredible one-liners that just blew you away, and obviously were references to the previous movies, and it was just great, you know, and the crowd was going wild at that point.
Yeah,
But up until that point, if you notice, the crowd was silent.
There were a few claps when Doc Ock would come on, or Green Goblin.
Right.
Like when the villains were there, it was, you got a couple laughs.
But even that, I feel like they could have done much better with that because
course,
you're drawing in these iconic villains that we have all come to either hate or love, and they did a good job introducing them, I felt like. But again, there was, for me at least, a lack of character arc where it was. And this is where I'm gonna bring in my least favorite part of the film, which is Aunt May. I felt like they were trying to very quickly phase Aunt May out. So what they did was they drew in this highly uncharacteristic script for Aunt May, and they decided they were going to use her as kind of this virtuous, we have to save everyone, which was not her character before this movie. And she was almost, in my opinion, in Peter's face saying, look, this is my way or the highway. And she kind of stood as this icon out of the blue. And then she died. Yeah. And it was like they were just trying to, okay, we have to get rid of her, so how do we do this quickly, decisively? And they picked, to me, the sloppiest script they could have picked.
So in terms of Aunt May, I think that Peter needed something to... Tom Holland, Peter Parker, needed something to push him. For each Peter, for each Spider-Man, they have something, whether it was Uncle Ben or Gwen Stacy, they had a moment of suffering or a moment of trial that they had to overcome. And so I think what Sony was trying to do here is go, what death can we give to our Spider-Man, Tom Holland Spider-Man, to give him that extra, to give him that motivation to go do something. And they tried to do that with Aunt
May. And I would have appreciated that more had they kept her authentic to who she was before this film. But to me, in trying to do that, they almost turned her into a new character, and it was very disconcerting. It was very just out of line with who she is.
Right.
We all love her. Right. For me, I love her as kind of this rather airheaded aunt, who has this fling with Happy, and she is one of the comedic reliefs, And in this film, suddenly she was Miss Responsibility, who had no comedic relief. I mean, she sucked the air out of the room, and that just wasn't, to me, that was a slap in the face to her character. It did not do her justice, and the possible symbolism behind it as well, I did not appreciate. It felt like being preached to.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Her entire scenes, I felt like it was almost like her scenes were looking at the crowd like you're a bunch of 5-year-olds that I have to preach my virtues to. So they just kind of, in my opinion, dismantled her character arc.
Okay.
To honor, actually to honor what you were saying, they needed him to have a loss. They needed him to have a challenge that he could overcome to further his character arc, so they sacrificed hers. And I thought, there's so many ways that you could have done that would have been a graceful way to phase her out, that would have honored her character arc and furthered his, but they just blew it.
Yeah. Aunt May has always just focused on one thing, and that's the safety of Peter.
Yeah.
She just wants the best for Peter. She wants the best for him, the best for what him and his friends are doing. She is the protector of Peter because she's the only one he has left. But now she's like, now we have to save everybody. Screw you, Peter.
Right.
Screw your thoughts and your, how this could affect the world. We have to save everybody. And I guess that's what you're trying to get at, as opposed to her saying, you know what, Peter, this isn't, or I just want you to be safe type of thing, and making.
Well, there was no regard for his safety.
Right.
I mean, as his aunt, there was no regard for Peter's safety. Yeah. She actually ran out of the apartment and didn't even check on him. But even more so than that, the idea of curing these villains, every story is at its heart a story of good and evil.
Right.
And
which, by the way, there are technically no villains in this film. It's people, it's men and women who you feel for and who have just been corrupt a bit. Just need to find their way. Just need to they're a little misguided.
Right.
And Peter needs to help them. It's like, oh no, you mean the people who have killed hundreds of civilians or innocents.
Right. Exactly.
These are the ones that we're trying to, and I get it, I see the heart, and there was heart in this film. I see the heart and what they're trying to do and saying.
And I don't. I think it was ridiculous.
But, because at the end they're at the Statue of Liberty, and we'll talk about this in a second as well. But they're at the Statue of Liberty, and before they go there, Peter or someone has a line that says, what's the best place to grant people second chances? And that's the Statue of Liberty. And I was like, you know what? Okay, you got me with that. I normally, no. I'd be like, no, you're blowing smoke up my ass. But I thought that was, because people shit on America right now so much that it was heartening for me to hear one of the characters at least say, hey, where's a place of second chances? Right here in America. Statue of Liberty, boom. That's, that's what's great. And Statue of Liberty has, for those of you who have seen it, the Captain America shield, which we think may have some symbolism to it, because the shield ends up falling off the statue and crumbling, and they have their final battle on the shield, which was, I don't know if it was a diss towards Captain America or America in general, and saying America is fallen or
There's
corrupt.
So many ways that could go,
right.
And I'm sure that as opinions come out, you'll see a lot of speculation about what that meant.
Yeah.
I do think that it meant something, and I'd be very curious to hear what it actually meant.
Yeah.
But I could see it being a nod to him, and his legacy. I could also see it being a diss on America right now.
Right.
But having said that, it would be contradictory to the theory that the Statue of Liberty is actually honoring that we do give people second chances, that we are the land of the free and the brave. So I don't know, but my opinion on that is that there was symbolism, but I have a few different theories for what the symbolism was and what it means. Yeah. Hoping it's something that is good.
I hope, because like I said, I think there's a lot of positive messaging here. I don't think that Sony or the scriptwriters or the director or anyone were trying to push any agenda or push any message or trying to be disheartening towards a particular group. I think overall what they were trying to say, but didn't really portray it as well as they could have, was that everyone deserves a second chance, everyone is worth saving, and everyone should be at least tried to be saved. There's something along those lines.
I would agree with that, but here's my issue with that, with the script, is that to me, it was such a weak script, because if you think about it, if you really think through each of these villains' stories, they've been given second chances already.
Right.
Third chances for some of them. Yeah. So by the time they roll around in this movie, it's almost, again, a disregard to the fact that they have murdered collectively hundreds, thousands of people. And that, of course, at this point, the best thing that you could do is what Doctor Strange suggested, is send them back to their timeline where some of them are dead.
Correct.
Just like their victims, by the way. Yeah. So, in my opinion, it felt like they banked on the actors at play. They knew that would draw in the audience. And they knew that would draw in the money. So they decided to go with the weakest script that they could come up with, which is basically, let's take all of these villains, portray them as, they're just, a case that can be cured. Right. And then try to cure them, and I just thought, the way that they even went about it, Peter and specifically Aunt May, which again was uncharacteristic to her storyline, was disregarding the fact that if you let loose a bunch of villains, of course they're going to go mass murder people. Right. So they did not have any forethought to the civilian lives at stake, to Peter's life, to Aunt May's life. They brought it upon themselves. The destruction, May's loss of life, Peter's sorrows, they brought it upon themselves.
Because you had mentioned Doctor Strange real quick.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Doctor Strange. He is one of the best parts of this movie, solely for the fact because Benedict Cumberbatch plays him to a T how I would imagine Doctor Strange should be.
Yes, every time.
I love that character, but his script is shit. They make him so worthless in this movie. He's not a bumbling idiot, but he's constantly either apologizing to Zendaya or he's saying, Peter, you need to stop. I got to make this spell again. You're the master of the mystic arts. Doctor Strange is the expert, the Doctor Strange. Yeah. And he can't tell Peter, you need to shut your mouth, because they're joking about always, is it Sir? Is it Stephen?
And that dragged on, by the way. It was funny the first time, it was kind of funny. Right. But they just kind of dragged that joke on and on and on to the end of the movie, where it was just not funny anymore.
Comedy comes in threes, and I think they did the joke 4 or 5 times.
It was way too many times.
Because Peter has a respect for Doctor Strange, but, by calling him Sir or whatnot, but then he just completely, blatantly, outwardly is this dumb turns into this 12-year-old kid who's like, what about and then just starts messing with the spell, and it's very frustrating, because there were times where I tended to agree with Doctor Strange, because he would say, listen, I'm sorry, this is the only way that this has to happen. You're talking about the good of 5 villains,
right?
Or however many there were, or millions of people in multiple dimensions and multiverses. It's not even a question, and yet I don't know. It was very unfortunate to see Doctor Strange very unsure of himself, unsure of the scenario, and very just weak.
He was very weak, and because Peter is still a kid.
Right.
And so for Peter to be able to absolutely whoop Doctor Strange's ass
in his own mirror universe,
right, in his own territory. To me, that was when I was like, okay, this movie's already losing my respect. Now I love Doctor Strange. Right. I usually agree with his opinions, so I might be a little bit biased, but I also feel like, again, it's like between Aunt May and the villains and Doctor Strange, there were multiple character arcs that were sacrificed just to move Peter's forward. And, I feel like as a writer, there is no need to ever sacrifice one character arc for the sake of another. The art of writing is to move character arcs forward parallel to each other or intertwined, and make it complicated and intricate, but beautifully written, where you see that each character is done justice. And instead, I feel like Aunt May was phased out and died. Doctor Strange was dumbed down. And I lost respect for him in this movie. And Peter was traumatized and just barely saved at the end. Where, I feel like if you brought in bring in all three Spider-Men, the people that we're waiting for, in the beginning of the movie, and really like dive into what that looks like for them. And you could have had an incredible movie.
Because we really, because the motivations and the character arcs of all three of those Spider-Men is beautiful.
Yes.
Andrew Garfield losing Gwen, heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Our classic, like, you know, as us growing up in the 90s, and Tobey Maguire being our Spider-Man, I guess, watching Uncle Ben die, heartbreaking. You know, each one of these was so impactful. And say what you will about the Andrew Garfield films or whatever, he was brilliant in this film.
So good. But
I really liked him.
But they even did justice to, you know, all the fan responses to his movie. They brought them in. I mean, he made fun of his own movie in a very classy, respectable way. And it was really something, like it kind of renewed respect for his movies.
Because he's doing I mean, for fans who've seen those films, everyone deems those as the worst of the Spider-Man films. And so in the film, you know, you guys have seen it. He's self-deprecating. He goes, you guys are the best. You guys are so cool. I wish I fought people in space and all this stuff. And Toby has to go, you're awesome, man. You know what?
Yeah,
you're amazing. Yeah, that's what it was. Because the Amazing Spider-Man, you know, and it was very like stuff like that was so well done, and you didn't feel like those moments were scripted. You felt like those were the actual actors. The brothers just talking, you know, and having those conversations, and so that alone, like I said, the third act of the film, at least go see it for that. If you get nothing else from our review or from reviews online, go watch it for the third act of the film. If you go in knowing, you know what, it's a flawed film, there are things that are wrong with it, there are things that, plot lines that don't make sense, and characters that have been sacrificed for other arcs, you know, and kind of odd script writing, just know that the third act, for me, pays it off because you get to see your heroes fighting side by side and battling together and I don't know, just having this hero's journey of not being corrupt, you know, because at the end, Toby almost protects Peter from falling into that trap of becoming a killer, by becoming a murderer, you know? And it's that older brother looking after the younger brother saying, you know, I don't want you to make the same mistakes I have made.
Well, I'm thinking about saving MJ.
Exactly.
That moment was my favorite moment of the entire film.
With Andrew Garfield saving
with Andrew Garfield saving MJ because, and spoiler alert, by the way, obviously.
We're
well beyond that. Beyond that. But that was such an incredible moment. And then quite honestly for me, like if you have a heart for just the Spider-Man movies, that moment alone, like go watch the movie just for that moment because it was almost like, and he had alluded to this throughout the film, Andrew Garfield, but you know, Gwen's mentioned throughout the film, obviously. That is his biggest challenge, his biggest sorrow, that is just the shadow over his life. And so when he ultimately saves MJ in this film, oh my God, like the tears in his eyes when he caught her, it was just this redemption moment that... Now talk about redemption, like screw the villains, talk about redemption for Andrew Garfield.
Yes.
That's the kind of film that we need. Like the villains they've already chosen their path. In my opinion, they had their second chances, they chose their path. But Spider-Man redemption.
Don't get in McKenna's way, guys. She will only give you 1 to 2 chances.
Maybe 2 chances.
Maybe 2, you're done, you're out.
Once you choose your path, you choose your path.
Right. And it was, you know, and like you said, there is so much that you could do with each Spider-Man. First act, second act, third act, with each different Spider-Man, you know, having them interacting with each other at the same time. That in itself should have been the film.